In today's training, I'm going to go over something that I think benefits literally anybody on the planet, at least anybody who wants to be successful. And I'm going to go over how we're going to make it unreasonable for you to not achieve your goals through having a refined mindset. So, there's this really cool quote from a book, and it's as follows: everything that is not forbidden by the laws of nature is achievable given the right knowledge. Now, for some people, this concept doesn't necessarily make too much sense, but when you apply it to life, you learn that it actually is the truth. Like, it's just how the universe works. And before I achieved any level of success, I didn't understand that basically what was missing was the right information. And so I'm going to be going over ways that you can improve the way that you think and how you can gain the right information to be able to achieve your goals. And so I know a lot of people will probably want to know like what the best offer is, or outreach method, or sales process, whatever. That's not what I'm going to be covering. I'm going to be covering everything you need before you actually get to any of that stuff. So stick with me. I promise it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth your time. Anyways, first, we need to look at who you need to become. Because the reason that you are not living the life that you've dreamed of, or having the business that you've always wanted, or having success with your freelancing journey, whatever your goal is, the reason why you're not there yet is because you haven't developed the character or become the person that deserves those things. And my goal in this training is to help you build that character so you can effortlessly achieve everything that you want in life. Okay? And so this basic principle is that you must become before you achieve. You might be wondering why. Well, due to the law of cause and effect, right? And that law states that every effect has a definite cause, and every cause has a definite effect. And so your new character that we're going to build is the cause that creates your desired outcome, aka the effect, right? All right. Let me know if you're sticking with me, if this is making any sense, or if I'm going too fast. I would like to save questions or speaking or anything like that for the end, so just hold on to those for me, please, because I want to run through this, but I will answer any and all questions that you may have. So, one thing that a lot of people, I don't think they cover enough or speak on enough, is actually the feelings that come up when you're on a journey of success and trying to achieve your goals. I know for me personally, and you guys probably relate to this, when you're going through this journey, most of the time you feel kind of alone. It can lead you to feeling bad or sad or even depressed, I guess. And I want you to know that everything has a price. Everything has a cost, whether it be time, money, energy, attention, whatever. Everything has a price. And so your success, your goals that you want to achieve, the price of that are the feelings that you're going through, the struggles that you're facing. And know it's required to get to that level of success. So if you're going through a bad time, you first have to realize that's the price you have to pay to become the person you want to be. And then you have two choices. You can either retreat back to your comfort zone, back to the person you've always been, or you can double down regardless of the current reality you face. And if you do so, you must be able to pull and bend reality to your will to get the one that you want, right? And so the only way to really do that is to have an information advantage over your competition, essentially, right? You need to take in new inputs, new data sets, whatever it is you want to call it, anything to help you get to the next step that's required to pull you out of your current situation. And you can kind of refer to this chart on the left. I call it the Alex Hormozy chart because it's the first time I've seen it. It was through him. But most people, when they're starting something, and this happened to me too, I'm pretty sure it happened to you, when you start in the phase of uninformed optimism. You're really optimistic about things, right? But you don't know anything. So once you start to learn, you kind of hit this dip and you're full of pessimism. And this is where most people fall off in their journey. This is the point at which you see someone who has shiny object syndrome. Usually they discover something, they're right here, and then they find out the realities about how difficult it actually is. Then they end up here, and then they jump to a new thing because they're uninformed, and it just keeps happening, right? And I was stuck in this kind of loop myself personally, but I figured out and I cracked the code on how to break out of this and go here. How many people here kind of feel like they're somewhere in this side of the curve or the graph? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Anyways, I'm just going to assume that some of you guys are. I don't know if you're lying, but I'm going to assume it's true. Anyways, just know that there's a price you have to pay, and if you're feeling bad, that's good. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. If you're feeling bad, it's a good thing. Next, a lot of people feel very lost, right? And you always have a season of feeling lost in your journey, and it'll happen at every level. Like, it'll happen at the level you're at, it'll happen at the level that I'm heading towards, it'll always happen. And so you have to have a proven system or way of navigating through those feelings and dealing with feeling lost. And just to break it down really quickly, most people, at least in this group, I would assume either want a business, freelance, or high position in a career. In terms of like the business side of things, we usually start in either the agency service-based route or the e-com product-based route. And you have to realize that your journey from where you currently are to where you're trying to get to is really simple. Like, it's essentially just this, right? You pick something, you get good at it, you develop systems, you build a team, you scale it, now you're at your dream life. And that's important because difficulty, which is something that you will always face during your journey, it will always breed feelings of being overwhelmed. So it can be easy to forget just how straightforward and simple the path actually is. And so just remember that there's always something you can do. Every single day, there's always something you can do to move the needle forward. And keep in mind that the path is very simple. And I wanted to cover those things first because I know personally I struggle with that a lot, and I'm assuming most people also probably struggle with that. But just know that these things are normal, and it's okay. It's actually good, and it probably means that you're heading in the right direction. But anyways, now that that's covered, time to get into, I'd say, the cool stuff. So, decisions plus mindset equals proper thinking. So your success is defined by the quality of the decisions you make on a day-to-day basis. So what if I told you that simply knowing what you want to achieve and who you need to become isn't actually enough to achieve it? That's why I personally don't only focus on mindset, because you need to dive deeper than just the rudimentary surface level things, right? You need to understand the underlying meanings behind everything that you think and do and how the world works. And that doing so allows you to recognize patterns in your world, and this is crucial in determining humanistic behaviors. And that's important because we're all human. So all of us have certain things and ways and ideologies that we operate under simply because of our biology and all that stuff, right? So now I'm going to equip you with the tools that you need to become a great thinker and a decision maker. And once you understand how the world works and not how you want it to work, then you cannot fail at anything. I promise. So how do we make great decisions? Well, that's by having the right mental models. And the quality of the decisions you make are dictated by the models that you have. Hands down, that's just the truth, right? But the models you have are also influenced by the information that you have. So you can never make good decisions, no matter how good of a decision maker you are, unless you have the right information. And this is key because a lot of people struggle to, let's say get their first client or make X amount of dollars simply because they're lacking the correct way of thinking and decision making. Maybe their mindset is right. Maybe you're all about self-development, but there's still a reason why you haven't achieved what you wanted to. This is why. So, your mental toolbox. To turn you into the best possible thinker and decision maker possible, we need to get you equipped with the proper mental toolbox. And in order to do that, there's two ways to do so. By one, knowing about your human biases and tendencies, and two, understanding what mental models are and how to use them effectively. And so human biases and tendencies are just patterns and ways of thinking or behaviors that can influence the decisions that you make. And once you're aware of the tendencies, you'll be able to easily avoid some of the main causes of common human blunders or mistakes, right? And mental models are just the frameworks we use to understand the world. You can just think of them as tools to think clearly or in a way. They're just a framework that affects how we think and understand things, right? And it's just a way to simply break down basic concepts of the world. And so you can think of a mental model as a way of representing how something works, because we as humans cannot remember every single detail possible about everything. So we have ways of thinking to break certain things down. Let me know if you guys are following along, if you're still with me. Just want to check in, make sure. Sweet. Okay, so here are some of the essential human biases and tendencies I think that you should be mindful of. And this I use a lot in my business decision, in my business life, but you can use it anywhere. I use this for personal relationships, business relationships, etc. But these are some things to just be mindful of. So the first one being the reciprocity tendency, or the reciprocation tendency. So reciprocation is a very strong psychological tendency that drives people to essentially pay back for what they've received. I don't know if you have ever been in a scenario where somebody gave you something and then you felt more inclined to give back to them because they gave something to you. That's essentially what this is, right? And it's the reason why this is important to always keep in the back of your mind is because it's such a powerful thing. Like, I don't think you guys understand. When I started implementing this in my business, things changed drastically. It's insane, because if you watch YouTube videos or gurus, they tell you do things like make Loom videos for your prospects or whatever, but they never tell you why, like the underlying why you would do something for the person you're trying to sell to. Well, the reason why this is cool to me is because with this reciprocity tendency, the thing that you're able to leverage to your advantage is the fact that people reciprocating don't always, it's not always proportionate to the benefit that they received. So for an example, the way that I'm able to charge somebody $15,000 for a website or $15,000 for a service is because I give them something, right? I give them a video going over their business or whatever, right? Now, do you think that the 5-minute, 10-minute Loom video that I made is in equal proportion to the $15,000 that I'm going to ask them for? No. But they feel more inclined to buy when I actually give them something. And so this is something you can use and always keep in the back of your mind when you're trying to reach out to prospects or trying to sell them on something. Always remember, how can I make them feel indebted to me? And that's how you need to approach anything. And this can be applied to not just business, but if you want to make a connection with somebody you view as above you, you need to figure out what can I give this person so they feel inclined to respond to me or reach back out to me or help me in some way, right? And always think from that frame of mind instead of what can this person do for me? Think, what can I do for them? And they will inevitably do something for you, even if it's not in equal proportion. So that's the first human bias that I think is really important. Second one is the incentive-caused bias. So this is a phenomenon that suggests when somebody has a personal or vetted interest in something, they tend to steer you in that direction, right? And so the way people behave is influenced by incentives. The entire world runs on incentives, if you really think about it. Everything we do as humans, we are incentivized to do for some reason. So the reason why you, get a job is because you're incentivized to do so, because you need to live, right? You need to survive, you need money, so on and so forth. And this is important because if you have a vetted interest in something, which is, I'm guessing, your success, this is how it was for me, you can use that to your advantage. And it doesn't have to be in a manipulative way, but it I don't know. Basically, for an example, right? I have some employees for my business, and previously I was paying them on a per hour basis, and that's all I was doing. And it left me feeling kind of uneasy because I wasn't really achieving my goals. They weren't necessarily doing what I needed them to do or the amount of it I needed them to do. So when I learned about the incentive cost bias, I used that to my advantage. If you align people's incentives with your goals, they will be inclined to help you in the direct proportion to which you need them to. So for an example, I have people who do outreach for me, right? And if I'm paying them per hour and I need a minimum amount of outreaches done per day, for an example, they're not necessarily incentivized to hit that minimum if I'm just paying them per hour. They're just incentivized to work whatever the required hours are and then be done with the day. But if I add in bonuses, if I'm like, hey, if you do this amount minimum, you get an increase on your pay. Or if you end up booking a sales call, then you get a, I don't know, fat bonus, right? That is me aligning my incentives or their incentives with my goals because I have a vetted interest in my goals. So try to think about, like, if you need people or you need something to do something, right? Think about how you can incentivize that person to be in alignment with your goals. You got to be a bit creative sometimes, but when you learn how to use that, it can be a really effective thing, honestly. And I think that one is one of the most important, one of the most underrated ones, but definitely a good one. And the third human bias that I think is really important is the inconsistency avoidance tendency. So most of us tend to act in accordance with our beliefs, habits, and identity. And it takes a lot of effort to change our habits, right? Especially the negative ones because it requires a considerable amount of energy. So, for example, one such habit is having a biased way of thinking that leads to cognitive errors, which can limit our choices in life. So if we believe, for an example, like, let's say I'm in America, but let's say I wasn't in America, right? And I was born somewhere else. And if I had a biased belief system that because I'm not in America, I can't sell to Americans or something like that, that is a cognitive error. That like limits the amount of things we can do, right? And so who here, for example, feels bad or unworthy if they miss a day at the gym or something? Just wondering. Well, I don't know if any of you guys work out, but yeah, you like usually, when you're going at it and then you miss a day, you feel pretty bad. But what if I told you can use this tendency to your advantage? And the way you can do that, right, is by convincing yourself that you've already accomplished your goals through visualization, right? Yeah, definitely gotta get better every day. But so if you visualize that you've already accomplished your goals and you do that consistently and repetitively, you can reprogram your mind to believe that you're already at the finish line. And sometimes people hear this, and this was honestly me included, and like they think that's kind of BS. But think about this. If you have a nostalgic memory, right, of like a bakery, right, or I don't know, something food wise, right, you can probably imagine the taste or the smell of that food, or this one might be a little, I don't know, but if you think about something that makes you feel good, right, you can get those feelings. Like you can actually feel the thing even if it's not around you or near you or anything, as long as you picture it in your mind. So that same thing applies to your goals and visualizing your success. For an example, I have vision boards on my wall. I have one there and I have one there. And I do that because personally, I can't really visualize in my head. Like I'm not that, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but it's hard for me to see things in my mind. So I have them in person so I can look at them every day. And when I do this, my brain, after a long enough time frame, it shifts so it perceives my reality as what I'm imagining, picturing, envisioning. And then when I open my eyes and look at my current reality that's not matching the thing that I'm seeing in my head, it feels inconsistent, which then leads me to pursue whatever it is that I need to do to get to where I need to be, because we hate being inconsistent. So if you always believe and picture that you're already where you want to be, your brain is going to then make you feel bad for not being there, which hopefully gets you to your goal faster. That's how it should work, right? And that's how it's worked for me. It's been very helpful. And hopefully you guys are visualizing. If you're not already, I would really start to visualize. It's a really cool thing. Some extra tendencies. These aren't necessarily like the most important thing, but I think they're pretty cool to think about, especially when it comes to business and sales and stuff and so on. So the first one is loss aversion. People often prefer avoiding losses than acquiring equivalent gains. So what that means is if you're trying to sell somebody something, you need to make sure that whatever you're selling them is miles above whatever they're going to lose, because people would rather not lose than to gain something. Even if what you're selling them will benefit them greatly, in their mind, all they can think about is what they're going to lose. So make sure that you highlight everything that they're going to gain, and that outweighs significantly what they're going to lose. Otherwise, they will not buy from you. Another one is anchoring. This one's used a lot. It's used pretty much everywhere. But let's say you're in a sales call, right? And your product or your service costs $5,000. Before you tell them the price of that, you would say something like, usually people sell this for $7,000, but today I'm going to give it to you for $5,000, right? And so that they relied on the first piece of information to make their decision, because if they buy from you, they're like, oh, usually this is $7,000 and he's selling it for $5,000. Oh, I need this, right? And so anchoring, that's a cool one. It's used pretty much in every sales, anything ever. So, and also you can use these to, yeah, even Lamine used it. But yeah, you can use these either to your advantage or spot them when somebody or something is doing it to you. You can avoid it. And then the last one is the sunk cost fallacy. I've had this problem myself where I've invested a lot of time or energy into something, and I evaluate whether or not I should continue it based off the amount of time and energy invested, rather than is this a good idea to keep moving forward with. And I know some of you guys have probably heard of this one, but it's definitely one to keep in mind, because sometimes we have a vested interest in something and we let that dictate decisions, which the whole point of this is to make better ones. So next, now that we've covered some, I believe, essential biases, now we can move on to some mental models, which the ones I'm going to cover are really the only ones you need. And if you want to explore more on your own, you can, obviously. But the first essential mental model, and I think this one is key, that everybody, if you're going to take anything away from this, you need to keep this in your mind, is first principles, or reasoning from first principles. So thinking from first principles is a useful way to solve complex problems and think creatively, right? So you identify key facts or ideas without relying on assumptions. Basically, you take a concept and you break it down to its most core fundamental parts, and you don't try to relate it to anything. You simply look at the facts, and then you synthesize a new idea based off of the things you've broken down. So for an example, also a way you can approach trying to reason from first principles is asking the 5 whys. So for an example, let's say the problem you have, which is one I had, is I can't get meetings, sales calls for my agency, right? So then you got to ask yourself why. Well, I can't get the sales calls because I'm not reaching out to enough people. Well, why am I not reaching out to enough people? Because I'm not incentivized to reach out to people, because I'm not getting paid to do it, right? Okay, well, why am I not incentivized? Well, I just said because I'm not getting paid to do it. But yeah, that's the reason. And then you do that and you break it down, you get to the most core bits. And so for me personally, that answer was, well, I can't get meetings for my agency. It's because I'm not consistent with outreach, because I'm not getting paid to do outreach, because I don't want to do outreach, right? And so my solution was to hire people, pay someone else. Now they are incentivized. Now what they're doing is in alignment with my goals. I don't have to do the outreach. They do it, but because they're getting paid to do it, they don't mind, right? And that's in direct benefit for me. So first principles reasoning is the thing that you need, because a lot of people, especially I've seen this a lot in this Discord as well, but people will try to ask other people questions before attempting or doing a thing or coming up with an answer themselves. And if you want to actually make any level of success in your life, you have to be able to take the initiative to think for yourself. It's okay to ask questions, but if you're not able to try to synthesize something on your own, you will not make it. I promise you, you will not. If you only rely on other people or YouTube videos or anything like that, you will have a really, really bad time. So try to use first principles in any problem that you're facing. When you don't know the answer, just break it down. Literally just break it down to the most simple, basic thing, and then rebuild up to a new idea. Okay. The next mental model, second order thinking. So this one is honestly super beneficial, and I think if more people did it, we wouldn't be in the state that we are in this world, to be honest. But anyways, when we make decisions, we often only think about the immediate problem and forget about the consequences. And this is known as first order thinking. However, there's a much better way, and it's called second order thinking. So every decision you make has a consequence, whether it's a good one or a bad one. And in this handy dandy little chart here, it's an example. So let's say you have to make a decision. Usually a lot of people will make the decision that seems an immediate benefit to them without thinking about the ones that come after that. If you've played chess, for an example, that's usually how you play the game. You think about every possible move after. You don't just think about the first move you're going to make and then just keep doing that. You have to think about, what is my opponent going to do? What am I going to do after that? And so on and so forth. So for an example, let's say you were trying to decide if you should buy a course, right? The first order consequence of buying the course on this side, for example, it's a bad consequence. You lose money. But now let's say potentially the second order consequence being you gain money because you learned things you didn't know before, and now you know how to build a business, right? And then on this side, you don't buy the course, so you get to keep your money. But because of that, now you're struggling, you have expenses, you don't have any income coming in, and you end up losing it all anyways. That's an example, right? So second order thinking is a more thoughtful way of considering how our actions might affect others and the future. And even when we have good intentions, we can still cause harm, and that's why it's important to consider the interactions and time involved in our decisions. This allows us to avoid one-way door decisions, which are just difficult or impossible things to reverse once it's been done, right? And so here are some, three, there's supposed to be a third one, but here are 2 ways, I guess, you can put second order thinking into practice today. So when you're going to make a decision, right, and you don't immediately know what is going to happen, or honestly, you can use this in any decision, always ask yourself, and then what? I do this thing, and then what? Don't just stop at, I want to do this thing. Because a lot of the times, we have our wants, the things that make us happy, or our vices or whatever, and we just stop there and then go, and then we end up taking the fall on the back end. So start with that. And then another one is thinking through time. So you'll ask yourself, well, if I make this decision, what do the consequences look like in 10 minutes from it? 10 months, 10 years, right? Those are two ways you can implement that into your life right now. The third one is inverse thinking. So instead of solely focusing on how to achieve a desired outcome, like making 10K a month or building a really awesome team of people, one should consider what might stop them from accomplishing that goal, right? And so by identifying the potential obstacles, then all you need to do is avoid everything that you just came up with. So if, for an example, you're like, okay, how do I make my first $1,000 online? Instead of thinking, how do I make my first $1,000 online? You think, what can keep me from making $1,000 online? You literally list out every possible thing that your brain could think of, and then make sure every day you avoid doing all of those things. So not reaching out consistently, not being skilled enough, not having any sort of trust buildup, social proof, not having a personal brand. Like, you think of all those things, and then you either do the direct opposite or just avoid it altogether. And Charlie Munger, who's the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, he was the king of this. He always pushed inverse thinking. And he said, this is a quote of his, he said, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there, right? And that's a way of approaching it. And this mental model has been really effective for me personally. I have these sessions where I think, I come up with a plan for my business, for example, and I think like a month out. and I just try to evaluate every possible thing that can happen in the month that would keep me from getting to the goal that I'm trying to reach. And so far it's been proven to be helpful. So hopefully you guys start to include and incorporate inverse thinking into your decision making. And the final one, this one's really simple, but it's probabilistic thinking. So this one just is essentially estimating outcomes, the likelihood of something happening. And the reason why I include this is because a lot of times people will try to ask others if they should make a decision before first evaluating it themselves. So, for an example, let's say this was you. You're like, should I spend money on paid ads, or should I spend it on an employee, or should I just save it, right? Well, think about your goal and then think about the probability of you reaching that goal based off of each decision. And this can apply to literally anything, but I've even seen it in this Discord a lot. A lot of people will ask, should I do this or this, this or this? Well, think about where you're trying to go, and then think about the chances of you getting there based off the thing you're doing. You might be able to answer the question on your own without even asking anybody. So these, I know I went through these a little quick, but these mental models and human biases are super important, honestly. These have all helped me with my business and helping me scale past 20K a month. It's helped me, and before I even knew what these were, get my 6-figure software engineering job when I was still in high school. So I think really using your brain, honestly, it will take you much further than you think. It's super helpful. And let me know if you're still with me, if you're still following along, if you're good. Just want to make sure. Sweet. Thanks. Glad to hear it. We're about to wrap up soon, so sweet. Glad you guys are enjoying it. So, one of my final points. Your environment, gentlemen, your environment, it matters a ton, okay? We have the power to influence our environment, but our environment has the power to influence and affect us, okay? So if you can find me somebody who's trying to accomplish or build something in a negative environment, who doesn't have any support system or friends, I can tell you their chances of succeeding are very slim, very, very small, right? And so I've learned that one of the most effective ways to improve your situation is to surround yourself with people who have already achieved what you're aiming for, which is something that you guys are doing by being a part of this group, which is awesome. So if you have any friends or anybody, or if you know anyone who is kind of needing that community and support, definitely shoot them an invite to the group, because this is the thing that's going to help a lot of us achieve the things that we want to achieve, okay? Being a part of an effective community, having that support system, super important. But you can't stop there, okay? You must attempt to curate your reality. And you need to build a world where anything that you want to achieve is possible. So carve out your own space, whether it be your own apartment, room, office, make it, enjoyable to be in, make it good for you. Unfollow negative people, stay away from them. Distance yourself from any pessimistic family members you may have or friends. Say goodbye to any toxic girlfriends, or if we have any ladies in here, I don't think we do, boyfriends who don't believe in you. Just stay away from all that, because it will hold you back, right? I know it definitely has held me back in certain areas, and I don't want to see that happen to you, okay? I care about you. So, finally, we've now reached the end. So, some action steps for you guys. I want you to seriously spend, after this call or sometime today, it needs to be done today. Act like you need to take action. Speed is important, right? Spend 30 minutes to an hour filling out the following on either a sheet of paper or a Notion document, Apple Notes, whatever, I don't really care. You need to describe the life and the business that you want to build. If it's not a business, if it's a career thing, that's fine too. Just describe it, be specific, and don't hold anything back. Do not limit yourself. Like, if you want to be pushing Lambos down to Target or something, then say that. Genuinely, don't hold yourself back. Then describe the character that deserves the life and the business and or career that you want to have, right? Write out what their beliefs are. So this character of yours that you want to become, write out their beliefs. Write out what habits they need to be having on a day-to-day basis. Write out the values that they have. Write out their goals and some of their non-negotiables, right? This is super duper important. And it also kind of ties back into the inconsistency tendency that I was telling you about. Like I showed you behind me, for example, I have a vision board. I have this, for an example. I'm pretty sure you can see this, right? Yeah. I have my affirmations. I read these on a daily basis. I genuinely sit here and I talk to myself. And before, this number was smaller. This number was 10,000. Now it's 50,000. I genuinely sit here every day and say these things. And some people think it's like, I don't know, strange. But you are literally reprogramming your brain. Your brain is constantly getting programmed from every input coming around you. So you might as well, feed it with stuff that you genuinely will need and will be helpful. And convince yourself that this is true. Because if you do, there's no way you can fail. So I'm glad to see that you guys do that too. It's awesome. Affirmations are really useful, in my opinion. But yeah, so do that. Next, I also want you guys to either purchase or find these books. You can find some free PDFs or audiobooks. Usually they're, I don't know. You'll be able to find them somewhere. I might be able to find some links for you guys. But I would say read this book first, The Magic of Thinking Big. I actually sent the Amazon link in the books channel. I promise you this, if you have any sort of limiting belief ever, this book will shatter all of them. Next, read Reality Transurfing, because this teaches you the laws of the universe, how it works, and how you can bend reality to your will, genuinely. And then The Beginning of Infinity, it teaches you certain concepts, and it was actually where the quote from the beginning came from, that everything that is not forbidden by the laws of nature or natural law is achievable given the right knowledge, right? So very profound things in that book. I would suggest all three of these to anybody who wants to achieve some level of success. And then finally, I just want you to go become great, okay? Really think about what you want to do, right? Try to make the hardest thing that you need to do on a day-to-day basis the easiest thing by removing as much friction as possible. So that might be, maybe you need to, do a design for your website or something. Make that the very first thing you do in the day, if you can help it, obviously. Or, like let's say you're struggling with sleep. Try to remove all of your devices and, get into the bed an hour before you're supposed to go to sleep. Try to remove as much friction as possible to be able to achieve the things you want to achieve. Next, use your goal as an anchor and always ensure that you act in accordance with it. So run every decision through the filter of, does this help me get closer to my goal? If no, don't do it. If yes, do it. And that's kind of where second order thinking comes into play. A lot of the times we have a choice to make and we don't really think past the immediate want when we make a choice. So try to do that. And then aim high and land low. So if your goal is to make $1,000, change your goal to 10,000. If it's 10,000, change it to 30,000. You get the point. If you aim high, you must act in accordance with that goal. And if you fail, which it'll be okay. If you fail, you at least land somewhere where you're comfortable. So if my goal is, I want to make $100,000, right? I'm now going to make decisions of the person who needs to be making $100,000 because, like I said, you need to make the decisions, which is the cause, to get the effect. And if I somehow don't make $100,000, because I made the decisions of a person who wants to make $100,000, I at least land somewhere in the 50 to 80 range, right? Which is, in my opinion, still great. So do that with your goals. You cannot fail. Now, my final thoughts on this is everyone here, everyone in this Discord, everyone around us, we all have a unique set of goals, but with the right knowledge and the skills gained from this training, you can undoubtedly achieve your aspirations. So upgrade your mental toolkit with the valuable insights that you've learned, and there's no reason you will not crush your goals this year, okay? Fix your identity, which fixes your beliefs, which fixes your emotions, which then hopefully fix your actions, because if your actions don't align with those three things preceding, you will feel like garbage every single day, which is a good thing because that should get you moving. And so when aligned, success officially becomes inevitable. That is it for this training. Thank you for sticking by.